الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. Again, I thank you all for taking your time out on a Sunday afternoon. For us, it's a Sunday evening for really this topic, which is a very, very personal topic for myself. I'm fortunate to have written a book on it, but my research is continuing beyond my book in this field of Islamic ethics. And what I will probably do is I won't talk for very long, though I'm known to be a talker, but I want to minimize my ramblings and then kind of bring in, I think, Ustaz Samir and others who have important comments and questions. And so I will try and keep that to a minimum. I'll try and keep as interactive as I can. Not sure how, what the logistics will allow, but if it doesn't allow for interaction, don't worry. We can suffice with just me going through the slides. So as Ustaz Hassan mentioned, the topic today is the problem of evil within Islamic theology, and it is a perennial. This topic is a perennial topic, so it's not exclusive to Islam and Muslims, but it's a universal human problem. And before Islam, intellectuals, thinkers, philosophers, theologians had thought about this topic. And then when Islamic theology was developing as an intellectual discipline, or a discipline with formal parameters, our ulama of our tradition, Sunni and non-Sunni really, were grappling with this issue. And in my book, I try to capture some of the arguments and ideas and present it there in the book. So to launch into the slides themselves, let me see if I can share that. That should be hopefully that's large enough for people to see. Again, it's really great to be amongst you all. Hopefully, have any questions, I will try and give some answers to them. If I can't, of course, I'll defer them to authorities, I'm sure, in the crowd as well. Just to begin to sort of, get everyone warmed up, here are some pictures on the slide. So there's a young lady there to my left, and I think it's probably to your right, and then panning left to right for me, which would be right to left for you. We can see there are different pictures, and I'm just wondering if logistics allowed, whether the crowd can chime in to think what they think these pictures are about. What am I trying to get at, or how they're all connected?
So if anyone wants to raise their hand, we can unmute you.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I can hear you.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. I just wanted to chime in here. So these pictures, one is basically a lion grabbing a lioness, in fact, grabbing a zebra. So that's the zebra is kind of food for the lioness. So that's, kind of what we're saying for an innocent zebra to be eaten by a lioness. The middle one is basically seems like a flood, recent floods in Pakistan.
Yes, it does,
which is a global tragedy. This lady, I believe this is one of those cases in the UK. She was murdered while going somewhere.
Yes,
I
right.
think a Bangladeshi immigrant, Sabina or some name.
Yes, Sabina,
if I recall.
that's right.
Yeah. And a school teacher, I believe, or something. And then the photo below is Al-Quds surrounded by Israeli troops. And this illustration here, not sure what we're trying to see here, but this person is standing under a cloud of rain without an umbrella, it seems, or the umbrella is, he's using the umbrella as a walking stick, maybe, I'm not sure.
No, brilliant. Anyone else want to chime in? I mean, I think Salman sort of, he's hit them on the head. The examples here, we're beginning with the lioness, biting the zebra's neck, or this is the problem of predation. This is known as the evolutionary or the Darwinian problem of evil. So why is there so much death and destruction in nature? What purpose does that serve? why should so much animals suffer if evolution is the process set up by God in creation? So this is known as the evolutionary problem of evil, and predation is one aspect. Why should there be so much hunting and killing? Couldn't another system serve the same purposes? So that's true. Then there was the continuing ongoing tragedy in Pakistan. May Allah make the affairs easy and to relieve them from that calamity. The floods being beyond their control. Some of it, of course, is human. There's human cause here, but in terms of a natural event, things like floods, tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes, earthquakes, these are not within human control. These are often termed as natural evils that are beyond the free will of human beings. Then you got Sabina Nessa. Some I mentioned she was a teacher walking home through the park. She was brutally murdered, and that murder was done callously and by an act of free will. So that would be an example of moral evil that's done via choice, a human intervention and choice. You've got the guy there with a dark cloud hanging over him. I couldn't find a picture about personal suffering and personal sort of trauma and a kind of experiential evil that a person suffers as an individual. That was supposed to capture that. And then you've got the ongoing occupation in Al-Quds by the Zionist entity, and this is to capture something which I'm calling the system problem of evil, where why is it that God will allow a system to perpetuate suffering and oppression over a people? And I'm extending system here to include not just systems in terms of a government, i.e. political apparatus or a state, but any kind of regime of abuse where there's a dynamic of power. So that could be a husband over a wife or vice versa, or parents over children, or some kind of setup where some formal structures are oppressing an individual or groups of individuals. So brilliant. Yeah, that was just to warm up. If anyone wants to chime in, feel free. That was just to sort of get our minds connected to what the theme is today. And so there is a very, very interesting clip. I'm not going to play the clip, but in popular culture, even Superman has discusses the problem of evil, mentions the problem of evil. And there's a scene where Lex Luthor, he says to Superman, what we call God depends on our tribe, because God is tribal. God takes sides. No man in the sky intervened to deliver me from daddy's fists and abominations. If God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. And if he's all good, he cannot be all powerful. So I think Lex Luthor, is raising the age-old problem of, there can't be a God that exists, because where was this God when I was suffering abuse or a personal calamity or tragedy? Why didn't this being, he's referring to a person in the sky, meaning a heavenly power. Why didn't this heavenly power intervene and stop my daddy from abusing me? Which is an interesting backstory about Lex Luthor and why he's so evil, but we'll leave that to the psychologists. So if God is all powerful, then he can't be all good. So there's supposed to be this contradiction set up where God cannot have compatible attributes, i.e. evil existing and God being powerful or good or knowing everything. They're somehow incompatible. You can't have one with the other. And that essentially, as we'll see, is at the heart of what the problem of evil is and how it's been conceived historically, particularly in contemporary times. So this is how the outline will look for the next, I think, hopefully under half hour. I'll mention briefly what is the problem of evil, the common formulation of the problem of evil, which I've written here as POE. What are some general responses you'll find, philosophical responses to the problem of evil? Then we'll dive into the problem of evil as it's been framed within Islamic theology, or one framing within Islamic theology. And then what are some of the general responses ulama have given to addressing the problem of evil, the mas'alatu shar within the Islamic tradition. So that's how the outline will look as I go along. If there are, really urgent questions on it, please feel free to type it in, or raise your hand, and admin, I'm sure, will allow you to make your comment, or we could just leave it until when I've finished, and then we can entertain it through a question and answer and discussion. Right, so that's the outline out of the way. Some of the key books that shape the theodicy field. These aren't all the books, but these are some of the major books. You may be familiar with some of them, you may not be familiar with some of them, but there's a few there to mention. One of the very first is this kind of darkish, purplish one, burgundy, Theodicy in Islamic Thought by Eric L. Ormsby. To my surprise, I have to say this, to my surprise, not many people have read that book, but that book is one of the best. It's one of the best. And it really set the tone for the theodicy field. It set the parameters as well, and it set the bar high. And so I would recommend, if people want a good read about how the issues we're discussing today, how they relate to specifically Islamic theology, then that book is a must read. For overall accounts of the problem of evil and then responses, there's also Tuba Nur Özkan's book, A Muslim Response to Evil, where she focuses on Sayyid Nursi and his ideas about how to explain why there's suffering and pain in the world. And then, of course, you've got one of the seminal works within the field, and that's by Professor Jackson, Islam and the Problem of Black Suffering. And, the summary is there on how the different Sunni theological schools view evil, and how their views can be used can be applied to the problem of black suffering, collective suffering, is a unique contribution. Another book, I think, which is not relatively known, but is one of the perhaps the largest tome, is by Dr. Talal Zaini on theodicy, and it's The Revival of Piety Through an Islamic Theodicy. It's the Red Book. Dr. Talal, many might know through his translations of Al-Hafidh ibn al-Qayyim, the Jawziyya's work on Miftah al-Sa'ada, and other works. So his recent book is on Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and his ideas on causality and things like that. So these are just some of the books I think we must, I think we have to read. The other books are just as important. And then my book is just a recent contribution to the field. Okay. Before I go into outlining, I think it's a good thing to mention an epistemological point, and I'll mention why this is important. So we need to go into an idea of what's known as defeaters. Now, in epistemology, epistemology is the branch of philosophy that deals with knowledge. So the branch of philosophy that deals with reality is called metaphysics. The branch that deals with, in philosophy we have different branches. So here in epistemology is the branch that deals with the philosophical analysis of knowledge. So there's a term that philosophers use, and you may have heard of it, is the term defeater. A defeater is just a term that refers to when your evidence for something that you believe in is challenged, is undermined. We call that a defeater. And so we as learners, as knowers, or as epistemic agents, individuals who have beliefs, we act on our beliefs and our knowledge, claims and things like that. We can have defeaters raised against our beliefs. Now, in the face of defeaters, there are three postures you could take. One, if someone provides a defeater for your belief, you can give up your belief and abandon it. You can lower your confidence in your belief. Or 3, you can provide a defeater, or what we call a counter defeater. So someone throws an objection to your belief, the evidence for your belief, then you counter with an objection against their objection. So when we look at the problem of evil, we need to know what kind of defeater the problem of evil arguments are, and two, what should be our posture. Clearly our posture can't be we give up our belief in Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's kufr. That's the negation of Iman. And we can't lower our confidence in our belief in Allah's attributes, His names, His goodness, etc. We cannot have su'u dhan billah, because that is kufr as well. So if we can't give up our belief, we can't lower our confidence in our belief, then we're really only left with one posture, and that is to provide a defeater, i.e. to challenge the objection, to give a counter objection to any objection raised against our belief. So yeah, I think I don't want to get too clogged up with these terms, but I just thought I'd mention it because it's important. We need to know what kind of role the problem of evil arguments are doing to our belief, to our Iman, to our faith. So just to give you an example of defeaters, imagine that you believe this session or this course on the problem of evil is really good. It's amazing. But then you read a review that the course got a 1-star rating out of 5. This 1-star rating will now be a defeater for your belief that this session or this course on the problem of evil was really good. Or think of another example. Suppose a guy, let's just call him Amr. Amr tells you that the car outside in the porch is blue. So Amr tells you this porch outside is blue. But then you learn that Amr is a blue-green colorblind. Yeah, that is going to now dent confidence in your belief that about what Amr told you about the car being blue in the porch. And the third one, this is, suppose that you think studying ilmul kalam is not allowed, is unlawful, but then you read Imam Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari's book Al-Istihsan al-Khawf fi Ilm al-Kalam, and suddenly you realize that your belief that was unlawful is undermined. That will be a defeater for your belief that kalam is unlawful. These are just examples. I'm not making a debate out of it. We can take that and debate. We can leave that debate for another time. So these are just examples. So a defeater is what undermines your evidence in your belief in something. So if your belief rests on some evidence, someone comes and challenges your evidence, they're providing a defeater for your belief. There are different types of defeaters. Very, very quickly, I'll just mention 3. There are what we call an undercutting defeater, a rebutting defeater, and a no reason defeater. An undercutting defeater is when someone directly challenges your current belief in something. So suppose you believe in X, someone comes and challenges your belief, saying not X, i.e. they negate your belief directly. So suppose you believe the existence of Allah based on the fitrah. So the fitrah is proof for you that Allah exists, but someone comes and tells you the fitrah is not a strong or good basis for belief in God. What they've done now is they've directly challenged the basis of your belief in God, which is based on the fitrah. That will be an undercutting defeater. Then you have a rebutting defeater. A rebutting defeater is when someone makes you think or gives you a reason to think your belief is not true, i.e. is false, by not attacking your belief directly, but by giving you a different or opposite view. So suppose you believe that God exists, so Allah Azza wa Jalla exists, bila shak, for sure. So you believe that, but then someone comes along and gives you a different view. They don't directly attack your belief, i.e. they don't go for the chop, but they give you an opposite view that is contrary to your belief. So then they bring up the problem of evil. So they haven't said your belief is false, but they have given you an opposite view, that the problem of evil leads to the problem of evil entails that God does not exist. So this is known as a rebutting defeater. And then you've got the no reason defeater. A no reason defeater is when you believe in things, but when you reflect on your beliefs, you realize that you had no good basis for your beliefs. You never really had there was no grounds on why you believed something, even though you believed it. So I just gave an example here. Supposing that you believe that the Mawlid al-Nabawi Sharif was a bid'ah, but you never really reflected on that belief. You just thought it was bid'ah because you grew up around people who believed it was bid'ah or told you it was bid'ah, but you never really reflected on whether your belief was based on evidence or good independent reasons. In that case, you'd have a no reason defeater. That, you know, you've got a defeater for your belief that because it's groundless, it has no reason behind it, it has no justification or evidence behind it. So this is these are just three broad types of defeaters. Think of it like you can think of it like a courtroom. Suppose so the prosecution and the defense counsels, one claims that their client is guilty, but the prosecution believes that the defense's client is sorry, the defense believes is not guilty, but the prosecution believes that the defense's client is guilty. Now, if the prosecution directly challenge the claim that the defendant is not guilty, this is an undercutting defeater. Whereas a rebutting defeater would be if the defense say my client is not guilty, but the prosecution then bring an opposing view. This would be a rebutting defeater. They might not outright say that the client is guilty, the defense's client is guilty, but they bring a different view to show the opposite to him being not guilty. Anyway, don't get clogged up. If you think these things, I'm not quite clear in my head what these defeaters are and what the different examples are. Just understand that the reason why I'm bringing defeaters in here is that we need to know what kind of role the problem of evil arguments are playing. Are they rebutting defeaters or are they undercutting defeaters? And so this is the reason why I brought that, because Muslims, we need to understand when someone brings an argument, what that argument is trying to attack. Is it a direct attack, an undercutting defeater, or is it not so much a direct attack? So it's a rebutting defeater. So what then is the problem of evil? Moving on. What then is the problem of evil? So simply, the problem of evil deals with the question how we can reconcile the existence of evil and suffering in the world and a being that has at least these three attributes. This being is all powerful, knows everything, and is all good. So the omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent. So the omni God, yeah, the omni being. And then this being created the world. So how is it that we can harmonize these three core attributes with the existence of evil and suffering in the world? That project, that endeavor, that enterprise is known as we'll come to see, the enterprise of theodicy. But what are the types of the problem of evil? There is a logical problem of evil, the evidential problem of evil, the experiential problem of evil, and the systemic or system problem of evil. There are other categories you can give. I've just given 4 for now. And the logical problem of evil is an undercutting defeater. The logical problem of evil is supposed to show how, or supposed to prove how, God and evil are logically contradictory. You can't have both together and it being consistent. They're logically incompatible. So you can't believe that both evil and suffering exist and God is maximally good, maximally powerful, maximally knowing. You have to forsake or abandon or relinquish one of these attributes or all of them. So that's an undercutting defeater. That goes to the heart of belief in God. Because as a believer, you can't give up God, one of those omni attributes. You can't say God is not powerful, or God is, is powerful, but he's not that powerful, or he knows, but he doesn't know everything, and he's good, and he's only good, partially. He has goodness, power, and knowledge to a maximal degree. So that's the logical problem of evil. Then you have the evidential problem of evil. The evidential problem of evil, there are different varieties, but one variety of the evidential problem of evil is that the existence of God is highly improbable given the amount of evil and suffering in the world. So given some empirical facts about the world that we can establish, i.e. there clearly is suffering and pain in the world, that makes it highly improbable that the God of traditional monotheism exists. Then there's the experiential problem of evil, which is the belief in a God becomes extremely difficult given the types of evil and suffering we see in the world, particularly individual instances of evil and suffering, like rape, torture, terminal illnesses, whatever it might be. Believing in God becomes extremely difficult. Things seem to stack against that belief, not in favor of that belief, given our empirical, what we can empirically understand about the world, which is that there seems to be a lot of suffering. Then there's a system problem of evil, which I mentioned at the beginning, which is the way systems in the world are set up or allowed to function perpetuate harm and suffering. Why would God allow such a system to exist? So why would Allah, for example, allow Fir'aun's system? Why would Allah allow Fir'aun and his tyrannical system to continually oppress Banu Israel? Before Musa alayhi salam came and delivered them from the tyranny of Fir'aun. So why would God allow that kind of system? What possible good could there be for him allowing such a system to be set up and perpetuate harm and oppression on people? If such systems exist, they likely indicate that such a God of classical theism, i.e. the fact that he's maximally good, powerful and knowing, it's likely that he doesn't exist, or it brings it into doubt. So these are the kind of four types of problem of evil. There are more divisions, but I just thought I'll mention these four. But as I was saying, anyone who attempts to harmonize or attempts to make consistent the problem of evil and suffering in the world with God's core attributes is engaged in the enterprise of theodicy. And theodicies broadly are explaining how evil is compatible with the traditional picture of the monotheistic God. Now, some people make a division or difference between theodicy and defense. You'll find this in the philosophical literature. Theodicy is considered to be the actual reason you give of why God will allow evil in the world. The actual reason behind it, i.e. the reason why there's this suffering is because of A or because of B. So God allows this to happen because of X, Y, and Z. A defense is a less stronger claim. A defense is saying a possible reason why God may allow evil, i.e. a possible reason. And that possible reason could be something epistemically possible or just a logically possible reason. The possibility doesn't even have to be credible, doesn't even have to be believable or reasonable. It just has to be logically consistent. It has to be short of a contradiction. And so some people say a defense is that it's a less stronger claim. It's just saying if it can be possibly shown that evil is compatible with God, possibly, even if the reason is incredulous or unbelievable, as long as it's not logically or formally contradictory, then that's a defense. Whereas a theodicy is more stronger claim. It's saying this is the actual reason developed for why God permits evil. Very quickly, some types of theodicies. We have in the literature privation theories. Privation theory says, look, evil doesn't really exist. It doesn't have its own ontology, but evil exists because evil exists when there is no good or the absence of good. So a shadow doesn't have independent existence, but a shadow exists only because exists only in the absence of light. So when light is blocked, there is shadow. When good is blocked, there is evil. The other account says evil exists because of free will. So human beings cause suffering in the world, and that's known as moral evil. So we have to account for evil through human choice. Then there's soul-building theodicies. The reason why there's so much evil in the world is evil is necessary for us to cultivate certain types of characteristics and virtues. i.e. we become better religious individuals. if we suffer. Evil serves some greater good. That's number 4. These are known as greater good theodicies. Number 5, these are known as counterpart and appreciation theodicies. These are theodicies that say, look, you can't appreciate good unless you have bad, unless you've seen bad or suffered bad. You can't appreciate good food unless you've tasted bitter or bad food. You can't appreciate wealth unless you've been poor. You can't really appreciate these things. You can't appreciate your health unless you've been, really ill. And so these are, you understand something through its opposite. So you appreciate something through its opposite. Good only really shines and becomes clear and manifest when we see it in contrast to evil. Then there's the mystery theodicy. We can't explain why there's so much evil and suffering in the world. There is an explanation. We just can never know the explanation until God tells us what the explanation is. So there is an explanation. We just don't know what it is, and we will never know what it is. We'd have to wait for the divine to tell us why he allows so much suffering and evil in the world. And then there's another position, which is not really a theodicy, but it's a kind of position against evil, and that is skeptical theism. Skeptical theism says that given that we're so limited in our knowledge and our ability to know things, it's not likely that we're going to be able to know the reasons behind why an omnipotent, omniscient, infinite, unlimited being would allow things to happen, why that being would act in the way that it does. So skeptical theism says we're never going to know that. We're not in a cognitive position to make that assessment. So that's more of a positioning on the problem of evil, not really a theodicy. Okay, what about now, having sketched the philosophical, sort of broad philosophical sort of canvas of the problem of evil, how have Muslims framed this issue, or how has it been framed within Muslim theology? I always use this example from Hujjatul Islam, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, when he mentions that in Maqsad al-Asna, so he has a little commentary on the divine names, Sharh Asma'illahi al-Husna, and in that he mentions that some people may ask, what is the meaning of Allah being Rahim and Arhamur Rahimin, i.e. the most compassionate? Some people may ask, what's the meaning of this name, these names of Allah? And why? Because a compassionate person does not see someone being afflicted, injured, tormented, ill, without rushing to remove that from them. That's what it means to be compassionate, especially if he is able to remove it. Now, if Allah is able to ward off every misfortune and to avert all poverty and grief and to remove every sickness, tribulation and calamities, he's able to remove all of that, and yet he leaves his servants in the throes of travails and disasters and misfortunes. So here you have the problem set up, in very modern terms. Here you could say this is an argument for, the problem of sentient suffering. So Ghazali takes the problem of suffering as a paradigmatic case for evil. And this is what most people are talking about when we're talking about the problem of evil. They really mean the problem of sentient suffering, the suffering of creatures that have mental, cognitive functioning capacity. Or even, even if you're not fully mentally, cognitively capable. So suffering then is the paradigmatic case of evil. And Ghazali is saying, someone may legitimately ask, if Allah is Arhamar Rahimin, why then, and he's able to, and he has a power, huwa yaqdir ala imatati ma bihim. Allah has a power to be able to, he's able to remove, ward off all these misfortunes and calamities and evils and things like that. One, he would want to, right? If someone is Rahim, especially Arhamar Rahimin, if he sees someone, he would rush to want to relieve and alleviate that suffering from them, and even and with their power, then remove it. But the question then is, why does Allah allow that to happen? That's the question. And that, is, in essence, is the problem of evil. So fine, penultimate slides. What about some theodicies from Muslim thinkers? Some of the answers you find in the literature, so I don't know why the slide was jumping. Some of the answers you find in the literature, evil is an unavoidable secondary occurrence. What that means is that when you have the world structured the way it is, and there's going to be some collateral. We've got tectonic plates. That inevitably means we're going to have earthquakes. We have an ocean. We have oceans. Inevitably, that will mean oceans are going to affect people living on land, especially through different patterns, weather pattern changes. We have mountains. When mountains crumble, that's going to affect people if they're living near mountains, in mountainous regions and areas. So inevitably, there's going to be collateral. There's going to be unavoidable harm if we're defining evil as harm. So there's that explanation. Given the way the world is, it's inevitable that if we're going to have free will, or the world is structured the way it is, there's going to be adverse consequences. Another example is evil is a matter of subjective perspective, i.e. shar nisbi, i.e. the fact that evil is just your perspective. You judge something to be evil when from a limited perspective, so it's perspectival, but actually that evil that you're judging to be bad from your perspective might actually turn out to be something totally different. It might turn out to be good. It might be evil now from this vantage point, but from a different vantage point, it seems subjectively good. Number 3, evil in the end is actually a disguised good. So this view says there's no shar mahadh, there's no absolute evil, because in the end, it's a transformed or disguised good anyway. It's just that we may not live long enough to see it, or we just can't comprehend it, because we can only see the pixel and not the picture. Number 4, evil allows us to appreciate and see what is good. So this goes back to the contrast or appreciation theodicy. Yeah, the only way we're going to know what's good is if we're exposed to what's bad. We know good times when we're exposed to bad times. We know what it means to be happy and enjoy happiness when we have felt sadness. Number 5, evil is a part of the way the world is. This is just a fact about the way Allah created the world. Evil is just a part of it, and this comes from the idea of Iblis. You know, that Allah has just put Iblis as part of His providential plan. The way Allah's planned for His beloved devotees, His ibad, to come close to Him, Iblis is part of that plan, that providential plan. Iblis is going to bring people to Allah Azza wa Jal when they realize who their enemy really is. Although Iblis thinks that Allah has given him power, and he thinks that he's going to dupe most of mankind. But Allah says, except for my ardent devotees. Number 6, evil is a means to draw closer to Allah, what they call a proximity theodicy. The reason why we suffer is it's a way of Allah drawing His servants closer to Him, Jalla wa ala. Number 7, evil is necessary to build the soul. So you find this view in like Imam al-Maturidi, rahimahullah, where he's big on suffering. We need ibtila, we need trials and tribulations and calamities, because calamities maketh the man, yeah? Or calamity shapes the nafs. Shapes the nafs. So through calamity, through balaya, through ibtila, through bala, all these trials and tribulations, we cultivate fada'il, virtues and qualities that we would never otherwise cultivate, because we wouldn't need to draw on those qualities, or those qualities will not be brought out of us unless we were put under the test. Evil is necessary to secure greater good. So just as things can have a greater evil in them, the khamar has some manafi' according to the Quran, but the negatives are more than its benefits. You know. So that was number 8. 9, evil is part of the perfection of the world. So, you know, this is the qawl of, you find in Hujjat al-Islam, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, laysa fil imkan abda'u mimma kan. There is nothing in the rightness that is more perfect. There is nothing that can be more perfect than the way the actual world is. And this actual world contains suffering, evil, calamities. And that is part of the perfection of Allah's creation. Evil is educative, and evil allows human beings to better understand Allah's attributes. So number 10, evil is educative, or what they call a pedagogical theodicy. Through evil and tribulations and trials, we come to learn new things. Maybe we come to learn that this is a warning from Allah. We come to learn about the state of our own nafs, or us as a community. Maybe we come to learn about the beauty in creation and things like that. And related to number 10 is how evil and suffering allows us to understand Allah's attributes. So the pandemic, for example, made a lot of people reflect about Allah's attributes, how He's in control. And human beings are weak. We are powerless. We are at the mercy of forces beyond ourselves. And above all of that, and behind all of any force and power, is the power of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that made people understand the attribute of Allah bin al-Qadir. You know, so anyway, things like that. So evil allows human beings to better understand Allah's attributes. Finally, for those who are into theodicies, there is also an anti-theodicy camp. In the philosophical literature, the anti-theodicy is a position where not only should you not seek theodicies, you shouldn't try and explain, harmonize evil with God's attributes, but theodicies are in fact harmful. And they're harmful because of a number of reasons. The theodicies are always detached explanations, i.e. they're abstract, theoretical. They're never about the personal. You know, it's always from a philosophical vantage point. 2, they're morally insensitive, i.e. how can we talk about suffering in such abstract terms? You know, and how can we go about harmonizing, how can we go about giving an explanation for evil as if it was just some kind of a scientific experiment that has some kind of, you know, theoretical cause behind it? You know, all theodicies are highly consequentialist, i.e. there seems to be a balancing act. God allows evil for some greater good. So he's like this kind of cosmic bookkeeper. What kind of being would that be? Why would you want to do a balancing act of harm and benefit? In theodicies, people are always treated as means, not ends. So in theodicies, we say people suffer because of some greater good. So they're made a means to some other end, whereas they're not treated as ends in themselves. People are treated as stepping stones. Some people say that anti-theodicies encourage quietism. If this is the way things are supposed to be, and Allah and God is all wise, and this is the best possible world, why would you want to change it? Why would you want to change it? If the government oppresses its people, that's part of the divine decree that they do that. We shouldn't change it, because we're changing something which is part of God's arrangement and providence. Number 6 and 7 are related. By engaging in theodicy, theodicy actually adds more evil to the world. Why? Because all you're doing is you're explaining, you're not eliminating evil. You're just trying to explain away evil, while evil is still continuing. So while philosophers discuss what the abstract theoretical causes could be behind why suffering occurs in the world, what are the divine justifications for the suffering and evil, no one's actually doing anything about eliminating evil. Now, anti-theodicy in the Islamic tradition, this is the last slide, and I'll stop here. Anti-theodicy in the Islamic tradition, particularly associated with the Ash'ari and Zahiri tradition, is in the sense that human beings cannot know God's motives and actions. We can never know them. And not only that, it's improper to ask for explanations as to why God does something, unless God tells us why he does things. So we're not in a position to question God on why he does things, because we don't know the grounds for why he acts, because he may not have any grounds for why he acts. There's not something towards which God is trying to realize. There's not some end which completes God's actions. There can't be any justification for why God does things, why he chooses and decides, acts and moves. He's sovereign over his creation. He can do whatever he wants. He's not in debt to anyone. He doesn't owe anyone anything. And he's not beholden to a standard beyond his own commands. So there is no standard by which he's judged to be good or bad that he can fall short of. Yeah. So he's not measured by anything. His commands is the measurement. So this anti-theodicy position is very much an Ash'ari position. You know, we shouldn't question what Allah does. فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. There are theological and philosophical ways to explain it and pass it out, but the anti-theodicy position is you don't ask for God. You don't ask or question why God does some things and why he doesn't allow other things. He's sovereign over his creation. He created creation without any need or necessity. He did it out of pure act of contingent benevolence. There was no necessity that he had to create anything, and so he doesn't owe anyone or any creature anything. He doesn't owe them a good life. He doesn't owe them a fulfilled life. He doesn't owe them. He's not like a pleasure maximizer. He's not a kind of an act utilitarian being. He doesn't act to materially improve people's lives. So that is a kind of, you know, sort of anti-theodicy stance. So I'll end it there, and I'm sorry for rambling on.